Everything changed on a cold October afternoon. Rex was 9 months old then, nearly full grown. Thick winter coat, long legs, and those sharp, intelligent amber eyes. Amelia was outside splitting firewood, struggling through a chore that became harder every year. She didn't hear the grizzly until Rex suddenly stiffened, his entire body going rigid, the fur along his spine rising like a dark wave. Amelia spun around. A massive grizzly stood at the tree line, only 30 feet away. 600 pounds at least, claws like hooked knives, small eyes fixed squarely on her. It should have been plump for hibernation, but hunger had carved hollows into its frame, making it desperate and dangerous. Rex didn't hesitate. He stepped in front of her, planting himself between Amelia and the bear. The sound that tore out of his throat wasn't a bark or a howl. It was something ancient, a deep rumbling snarl pulled from the core of the earth. His lips peeled back to reveal every tooth he possessed, his entire body blazing with warning. The bear lumbered closer. Rex launched forward. Everything happened in a frantic blur. Black fur slamming into brown, snarls and roars tangling in the air, the sickening sound of teeth hitting flesh. The bear dwarfed him, but Rex fought with speed and precision born from instinct. He zigzagged in and out, snapping at the bear's face and legs, always moving, never letting the bear land a fatal blow. When those massive claws swiped at him, he dodged just in time and retaliated with a fierce bite to the bear's shoulder. Amelia stood rooted to the spot, the axe slipping from her hands. Her voice was gone. All she could do was watch her wolf battle a grizzly to protect her life. 2 minutes. It felt like years. Finally, bleeding from several wounds and clearly frustrated, the grizzly gave up. With a grunt, it backed away into the woods, deciding the risk wasn't worth the reward. Rex stayed tense until the bear disappeared completely. Only then did he turn to Amelia, limping slightly, and let out a soft, questioning whine as if to ask, "Are you okay?" Amelia dropped to her knees and threw her arms around him. She shook so violently she could barely hold on. He had saved her. This wolf, the one everyone insisted would eventually harm her, had nearly died defending her. Henry arrived within an hour after her frantic call. He stitched Rex's wounds while Amelia held his head, whispering to him. Rex stayed still and brave, only letting out a low whine when a needle hit a tender spot. That bear could have killed him, Henry said when he finished, his voice low. He was outmatched, Amelia. But he wasn't killed, she said quietly. He protected me. Henry stared at her, reading everything in her expression. "I know what you're thinking," he said. "You think this proves he's safe, that he'll always protect you. But it proves something else too." His voice softened. "He's wild. Amelia, he fought a bear. What happens next time? What if it isn't an animal threatening you? What if it's a person? He would never hurt someone," she insisted. "You can't know that." "Yes," she said, meeting his eyes. "I can." Henry left shaking his head. That evening Amelia tended to Rex's wounds, cleaning them gently and giving him the pain medication. She made him a bed near the fire, then sat beside him with her hand resting on his thick fur, feeling the rise and fall of his breathing. "You're such a good boy," she whispered. "My brave good boy." His tail thumped weakly. Outside, the first snow of winter erased the blood and tracks, covering the yard in fresh white silence. Inside the cabin, a woman and her wolf lay together in the firelight, bound by something no one else could understand. They had saved each other, in ways that went far beyond mere survival. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The first time Rex heard the call, Amelia was reading by the fire. He was curled at her feet, half asleep. It was a cold January night, nearly a year since she had found him in the snow. At a year and a half old, Rex was magnificent, 95 pounds of power wrapped in thick black fur, a creature of raw beauty and instinct. And he was hers, or so she kept trying to believe. Then the howl drifted in, a long, aching call carried on the winter wind. Rex's head snapped up, ears pricked so sharply Amelia felt her stomach twist. One howl became two, then several, overlapping, answering, beckoning. Rex stood, every muscle vibrating. He walked to the door, then turned to look at Amelia. In his eyes she saw it, the thing she had been fearing for months. Recognition, longing, a pull deeper than love, older than memory. "Not yet," she whispered. "Please, not yet." But Rex whimpered and pawed at the door. Keeping him inside felt like cruelty. So with shaking hands, she opened it. He vanished into the night. He came back hours later, dusted with snow and smelling of pine, cold wind, and something else, something wild and ancient and not entirely hers anymore. He greeted her with joy, wagging his tail, pressing his nose into her palm. But Amelia could see it. Something in him had changed. And over the next weeks, it happened again. The howls, his restless pacing, his pleading at the door, and Amelia letting him go. Every time he returned, until the night he didn't. She woke at dawn to find his bed empty. She stood barefoot on the porch in her nightgown, calling his name over and over, her voice disappearing into the trees. No answer. She waited all day, doing nervous chores she didn't need to do. She cooked meals she couldn't eat. Evening came. Then another night. Still no Rex. On the second day, she broke and called Henry, trying to keep her panic from bleeding through the phone. "How long has he been gone?" he asked gently. 36 hours, she whispered. Henry was silent for a moment. Then, carefully, "Amelia, you know what this means." "No," she whispered. "He'll come back. He always comes back. What if he doesn't this time? What if he's found a pack? What if he's decided where he truly belongs?" Amelia couldn't answer. She hung up and sat at the kitchen table staring at Rex's empty bowl, feeling the familiar hollow ache of loss spread through her chest. She had always known this day would come. Everyone had warned her this day would come, but knowing it in theory and living through it were two completely different kinds of heartbreak. Rex returned on the third morning, just as the first pale streaks of sunlight touched the treetops. Amelia heard the sound of paws on the porch and rushed to the door, flinging it open. There he was, leaner than before, filthy, exhausted. His pads were torn and bleeding, his thick coat tangled with burrs and streaked with dirt, and dried blood, clearly from some other animal, stained the fur around his muzzle. "Where have you been?" she whispered. Rex pressed himself against her legs, whining softly, and she understood instantly. He had been hunting. He had been running with other wolves. He had been living exactly the life he was born for. She washed him carefully, picked the burrs from his fur, cleaned his paws, fed him until his sides were round, and then watched as he curled up beside the fireplace and slept for nearly 18 hours without moving. When he finally woke, he was her Rex again, sweet, affectionate, content to rest his heavy head in her lap while she read. But Amelia knew now with absolute clarity. This life together was temporary. Rex wasn't hers to keep forever. Their shared days were gifts, borrowed moments. A rhythm settled over the months that followed. Rex would remain by her side for a week, sometimes two, and then the wild call would come drifting in on the wind. He would whine at the door until she opened it, and then vanish into the night. 3 days would pass. 4. Once nearly a week. Each departure cracked her heart a little further. Each homecoming made her cling to him just a little longer, memorizing the texture of his fur, the warmth of his body, the deep, steady sound of his breathing. One Sunday in March, Ava called. "How's your wolf?" "He's well," Amelia said. "He's happy. Is he with you?" "Not right now. He's out." Ava hesitated, her voice softening in that way that always meant she was about to say something Amelia didn't want to hear. "Mom, maybe it's time. Maybe you should call wildlife services. Have them relocate him somewhere safe. Somewhere he can live as what he is. He is safe here. Is he? Or are you keeping him because you can't let him go?" The truth of it struck too sharply. Amelia changed the subject. They talked about Ava's job, Mateo's new granddaughter, Amelia's first great-grandchild, a baby girl named Sophie with Thomas's eyes. When the call ended, Amelia stood at the window, staring out at the woods where Rex roamed, and wondered if Ava was right. Was she being selfish? Holding him here because she feared being alone? But then Rex would return, bounding through the trees, racing toward her with pure joy radiating from him. He would wiggle and whine and press his face against her, as if being home with her was the most wonderful thing in the world. And Amelia would think maybe, just maybe, it was possible to love something wild without imprisoning it. Maybe Rex was teaching her a new kind of love, one she'd never had to practice before. The kind that gives both roots and freedom. Spring crept over the mountains, thawing the snow and waking the forest. Rex's forays grew longer, but his reunions stayed bright and full of life. He would burst out of the woods, sprinting toward the cabin, and Amelia would meet him on the porch, and for a heartbeat everything felt right with the world. It was during one of those joyful homecomings in late April that everything shifted. Rex had been gone 5 days. Amelia spent the time tending her garden. Thomas's garden, really. 50 years they had planted it together. Now she worked alone, slower than before, her back aching, her hands trembling, but determined to keep this last piece of their shared life alive. She was kneeling in the dirt planting tomatoes when suddenly the world tipped sideways. Her right arm went weak, then numb. Her cheek sagged oddly. She tried to rise, but her legs wouldn't obey. She pitched forward into the soft soil, her thoughts foggy and terrified. A stroke. Even through the confusion, some part of her recognized it. She tried to crawl toward the house, dragging her unresponsive right side with her left. She managed only a few feet before her strength failed. She lay there in the garden, the sun warming her back, and thought, so this is how it ends. Not quietly in my sleep. Not gently, but alone out here in the dirt. At some point she lost consciousness. When awareness returned, the light had shifted, and something cold and wet was nudging her cheek. Rex. He had come back. He pushed at her shoulder with his nose, whining high and frightened. She tried to speak, but her mouth wouldn't shape the words. She tried to lift her hand, but her body felt distant, unreachable. Rex circled her in panic, licking her face, pawing at the ground beside her, trying desperately to wake her. When nothing worked, he threw back his head and let out a howl, raw, anguished. Rex ing through the valley with a grief so deep it shivered the air. Then he ran. Amelia drifted in and out of a fog of thirst and fear and fading consciousness. Time blurred. The sun moved. Shadows lengthened. At last she heard voices, human voices, and hands lifted her gently, urgently. She heard James's voice, shaken, terrified. Rex had gone to him. Somehow her wolf had brought help. The next days dissolved into hospitals, fluorescent lights, medical jargon, and quiet, grave faces. The doctors explained she'd had a major stroke. The right side of her body was partially paralyzed. She would need months of therapy. Ava and Mateo arrived. Ava crying openly, Mateo pale and stern, and they finally said the thing she had dreaded. "You can't go back to the cabin, Mom," Mateo said. "You need constant care. You need people nearby. You need to be safe." But Amelia surprised them both. "No," she said, her words slow but determined. "I'm going home." "Mom," Ava pleaded, "you can hardly walk. You can't take care of yourself, let alone a wolf." "Rex saved me," Amelia replied. "He got help. He knew what to do. And I am stronger than you think." 3 weeks of therapy followed, painful, exhausting, full of small victories. Amelia learned to walk again using a cane, learned to adapt to her weakened arm, learned how to manage on her own terms. Her doctors were impressed. Her children reluctantly accepted her decision. And Henry, the one Rex had led straight to her, finally admitted that there might be something extraordinary, perhaps even sacred, in this bond between woman and wolf. When she finally returned home in mid-May, Rex was waiting. He had stayed at James's clinic while she recovered, refusing food, pacing restlessly. But when her car pulled into the driveway, he shot forward, tail whipping so hard his whole body vibrated. She opened the door, and he pressed against her carefully, gently, aware she was fragile. Amelia stroked his fur with her good hand and broke into tears. Rex whined and licked her cheek as if trying to erase every trace of her suffering. Ava, helping her mother out of the car, had to swallow her disbelief. There was something undeniably deep in their connection, something no one could name. For 2 weeks, Rex didn't leave her side. He followed her everywhere, slept beside her bed at night, steadied her when she wobbled, retrieved her cane when she needed it. He became her companion, her guard, her helper, her reason to push harder in recovery. But eventually the call came again. Rex stood by the door, pacing, torn. Amelia watched him and finally understood the full meaning of love. She opened the door. "Go," she told him softly. "I'll be here when you come back." Rex looked at her, those intelligent amber eyes filled with love, guilt, devotion, and longing. Then he ran into the forest. And for the first time, Amelia wasn't afraid. She knew now that love wasn't about holding tight. It was about trust, trusting that someone free would choose to return. And Rex always returned. 3 days later, Rex returned, but he wasn't by himself. Amelia was sitting on the porch when she saw movement at the edge of the tree line. Rex stepped out first, and behind him, moving slowly and cautiously, was a stunning gray and white female wolf. She was smaller than Rex, her eyes sharp and thoughtful, her posture wary. She halted at the border of the clearing, unwilling to come any closer to a human home, but not fleeing either. Rex trotted eagerly up to the porch, tail swaying, then did something that made Amelia's breath hitch. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching. He ran back to the female, touched his nose gently to hers, then returned to Amelia, back and forth, as if trying to link the two halves of his world. As if saying, "You matter to me. Both of you are my family." The female never stepped onto the porch, but over the next few weeks, Amelia often spotted her watching quietly from the woods whenever Rex visited. And then, one early morning in June, Amelia woke to find Rex stretched out on her porch, and beside him, still keeping a bit of distance, were 3 wolf pups. They were around 8 weeks old, tiny, clumsy bundles of gray and black fur with bright, curious eyes. They tumbled over each other, wrestling and exploring, while their mother observed from the forest's edge, and Rex lay proudly on the porch. He had positioned himself carefully, the link between the wilderness and the human he loved. Amelia sat very still, barely breathing. Rex hadn't just survived, he had flourished. He had claimed a life in the wild, found a mate, raised a family. Yet he hadn't forgotten her. He had brought them here, almost as if saying, "Look what I've become. Look at the life you helped me have." Throughout the summer, the visits continued. Rex always brought his family just far enough to show trust, never pushing them closer than they were ready for. But each time, the message was the same. This place, this human, was safe. As the weeks passed, the pups grew bolder. They'd creep a little nearer each time, though none ever came as close as their father. Amelia learned their habits. She discovered that if she left food at the porch's edge, the female would quietly collect it, as long as Amelia was inside. She discovered the pup's endless curiosity, especially the smallest one, whose dark coat and amber eyes were just like Rex's. She discovered that Rex still enjoyed spending the night on her porch now and then, sleeping beneath the open sky, so close that Amelia could hear his breathing through her window. Ava and Mateo visited in August and saw the wolf family standing at the tree line. Mateo could only stare. Ava burst into tears. Amelia, sitting with her cane beside her and her heart full, simply said, "I told you, love finds its way." Henry continued stopping by with supplies and to check on her, and eventually admitted he'd been mistaken about Rex. This wolf could have vanished into the wilderness completely, never returning. But he didn't. He chose Amelia, again and again. He was raising his pups to trust humans, teaching them that love could cross the boundaries between species. One cool September evening, Amelia sat on her porch watching Rex play with his pups in the clearing. The female, whom Amelia had begun calling Luna in her thoughts, remained at her usual spot by the trees. Then one of the pups, the bold little female, edged closer to the porch stairs, her nose working overtime as she sniffed the human scent. Rex observed her closely but didn't interfere. The pup climbed one step, then another, exploring this strange wooden structure. Amelia stayed perfectly still, heart thudding. At the top step, the pup looked up at her with eyes full of intelligence and curiosity, Rex's eyes. Gently, Amelia extended her good hand. The pup sniffed it, hesitated, then gave it a quick, soft lick before scampering back to her siblings. Rex's tail wagged proudly, and Amelia could swear he seemed pleased with her progress. That night, after the wolf family melted back into the forest, Amelia sat by the fireplace thinking of Thomas. She thought of how he had died trying to save something wild, how he had believed every life mattered, how he had taught her that love meant respecting the wildness in others, not trying to tame it. "I did it, Thomas," she whispered to his photograph on the mantel. "I saved him, and I let him go, and he still chose to come back. I think you'd be proud." Outside, a howl rose into the mountains, then another, and then several more, a full family singing to the moon. And woven through that wild chorus, she heard Rex's voice, free, powerful, joyful. She had raised a wolf. She had loved something untamed. She had learned that the deepest form of love isn't about holding tight. It's about letting go. It's about giving both roots and wings. It's trusting the connection that binds two hearts, no matter how far apart their worlds are. As Amelia settled into bed, her body weary but her spirit at peace, she heard Rex's familiar weight land softly on the porch outside her window. He was there. He was safe. He was wild and free and loved. Tomorrow, he would roam the mountains with his pack, living the life he was destined for. But tonight, he chose to stay close, watching over the woman who had saved him as a helpless pup and taught him that love isn't a cage. It's an open door, a welcome that never fades, a home waiting patiently, no matter how far he travels or how fierce he becomes. And that, Amelia thought as sleep carried her away, was the most beautiful kind of love there could ever be.